The gym was everything Jason hated: bright LED lighting that buzzed, mirrors smeared with chalky handprints, pop music blaring through cheap speakers, and people, loud people, everywhere. He stood at the entrance, arms crossed, watching the front desk struggle to scan his name. They hadn't recognized him. That part didn't bother him. The real problem was the energy. This wasn't a place built for discipline. It was built for ego. He saw it in the way people threw weights, in the way they looked around before every rep, in the way everyone was trying to be seen. Jason hadn't come here to be seen. He'd come here because this gym had something his old one didn't: a trainer. One that everyone was whispering about: Cole Maddox. Jason had heard of him from a friend, former pro athlete, certified in 10 disciplines. Ran group sessions like military drills. The kind of guy who walked around with a stopwatch and a permanent scowl. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was what Jason had seen online: clips, dozens of them. Cole barking at members, mocking weak posture, laughing off struggling clients, telling people that softness was a disease. He didn't motivate, he shamed. Jason had seen enough. He wasn't here to lecture. He was here to see the man up close. The front desk finally buzzed him in. He nodded politely, stepped past the turnstile, and dropped his gym bag beside a corner mat. No announcement. No camera crew. Just him, black shirt, worn trainers, and that look in his eyes, the one that meant he wasn't here to play. People stared. A few whispered. One of the younger guys pointed and nudged his friend. Jason ignored all of it. He grabbed a pair of 20 kg kettlebells, dropped into a silent warm-up, and moved like a man who knew exactly what every inch of his body was doing. Cole noticed him within minutes. The trainer was in the far corner, mid-session with 3 clients doing box jumps. He stopped counting reps the moment he saw Jason move. Watched closely. Jason didn't look over. He knew how these types worked. Alpha types didn't like being out-alphaed, and Cole, he looked like a man who measured himself in dominance. Jason rotated through 3 movements, clean, fluid, precise. He didn't need noise to announce power, and that's exactly what drew Cole in. He walked over, towel over his shoulder, mouth curled in a smirk that hadn't earned its place yet. Jason stood, calm, relaxed. Cole scanned him, slow. Jason could tell he was doing the math. Not just muscle mass or technique, but whether or not he could own the moment. Cole gestured toward the kettlebells, said something meant to sound casual. Jason gave a polite nod, then returned to his reps. That's when the mocking began, not loud, not direct. Just a comment, tossed to one of his trainees, about guys who lift slow to hide bad form. Laughter followed. Jason didn't break pace. He'd heard worse in combat zones, but the problem wasn't the insult. It was the lesson behind it. Other people were watching. And they were learning that shame meant strength, that mocking weakness was leadership. Jason had spent his whole life unlearning that kind of poison. 20 minutes passed. Jason switched to pull-ups, full control, perfect range. The gym quieted again. Cole couldn't help himself. He walked over mid-set, clapped once, and said something under his breath to another trainer, loud enough for everyone to hear. Old-school guys show up once and act like they own the place. A few chuckled. Jason dropped from the bar, nodded slightly, then walked to the sandbag station. He didn't argue, because fighting words with words had never been his way. Across the gym, a group was gathering for Cole's next group training session. 8 people, all shapes and sizes, nervous some of them, overeager others. Jason watched from the corner. Cole spotted him, then smiled, wide and loud. He called out across the floor, "You watching because you want to learn, or just remembering the good old days?" The whole room turned. Now it was a performance. Jason stood still, unfazed, then walked toward the group. He stopped 5 feet away. Calm, quiet. One of the women in the group looked nervous. Jason looked at Cole, then at the group, then said calmly without raising his voice, "Just watching." And then, slowly, deliberately, he sat down on the floor at the back of the group. No tension, no challenge. But the move sent a ripple through the gym. People whispered. Someone pulled out a phone. Cole's jaw tightened, because now he'd been seen and the room had a new center of gravity. The training started. Cole barked instructions: push-ups, dead rows, burpees. Jason stayed seated. He watched each person carefully, how they moved, where they hesitated, when they looked to Cole for permission or for shame. 10 minutes in, one of the trainees collapsed during a burpee. A younger guy, maybe mid-20s, winded, knees to the mat. Cole walked over, looked down, and laughed. then said something loud enough for half the gym to hear. "You quit here, you'll quit everywhere." Jason stood, walked toward the trainee, knelt beside him, and without saying a word offered a hand. The kid looked up, hesitated, then took it. Jason helped him up, patted him once on the shoulder, then turned and walked back to his corner. He hadn't challenged Cole, but he'd rewritten the moment and everyone saw it. Cole stood frozen, eyes locked, then smirked again, louder this time. He turned to the rest of the group and shouted, "You know what we call that? Pity coaching." Jason didn't react. He didn't need to, because the kid he helped, he didn't drop out again. He finished the set, every rep, breathing hard, shoulders shaking, but standing. Jason walked toward the exit. He'd seen enough. He wasn't there to win, he was there to witness. But just as he reached the glass doors, Cole called out one final time. "Next time bring a camera crew, Grandpa. These people need entertainment." Jason stopped, didn't turn, didn't clench. He just breathed, and in that breath the room changed, because everyone realized something at once. Jason hadn't said more than a few words all morning, and somehow he'd owned every second. Have you ever watched someone mock another person for struggling, only to be humbled by someone who didn't even need to speak? Drop your story in the comments, because sometimes the strongest voice is the one that chooses not to shout. As Jason stepped outside, the door closed softly behind him. No slamming, no dramatics. But inside the gym, something had shifted, not because Jason had confronted Cole, because he didn't have to. Jason didn't plan on returning. He'd seen what he needed to see. The gym was poisoned from the top. The weights were clean, the branding was slick, but the culture, it was bruised, shaped by dominance, not discipline. And Cole Maddox didn't just run the space, he infected it. Jason didn't need to challenge that, not directly. He'd lived long enough to know that ego deflates by exposure, not explosion, so he walked out. But the gym wasn't done with him. The message came 3 days later, not from the gym, from someone inside it, a woman named Riley, early 30s. She'd been in Cole's group training session, the one Jason had sat in on. She'd seen the way he moved, the way he watched, the way he didn't speak unless it mattered. She sent a short message through the gym's app, a long shot. "You probably don't remember me, but I was there. You helped that guy up. I've never seen a trainer not mock someone in that moment, and I've been needing help." Jason didn't reply right away. He read it twice, sat back, thought about the boy who'd collapsed mid-burpee, thought about how Cole had laughed at weakness like it was contagious. Jason hadn't joined that gym for a reason, but maybe now he had one. He responded with 3 words, "Tell me when." The next evening he walked in, same gym, same noise, same mirrors, but this time something was different. He wasn't alone. Riley stood near the back rack, eyes scanning nervously. She wasn't weak. You could tell that by her posture, but she was tired. The kind of tired you earn when you've spent too long proving your worth to people who don't value it. Jason walked up, gave a nod. No smile, no pleasantries. Just presence. She told him Cole had been pushing her too hard, that his methods left her injured more than motivated, that she'd stayed quiet because it was normal here to be broken and keep going. Jason listened, then gestured toward the mat. They trained in silence, no commands. Just flow. He adjusted her stance, showed her where power came from, not muscle but movement. He slowed her breathing down, showed her that strength wasn't speed, it was control. Cole saw them halfway through. He was in the middle of a group warm-up when he caught the angle. Jason and Riley, side by side, moving with intention. His jaw clenched. He didn't interrupt, not yet, but the tension radiated across the room. Jason could feel it, like a shift in temperature behind his back. An hour passed. Jason wrapped the session with a simple nod. Riley stood taller now, not because her form was perfect, but because someone had trained her without belittling her. That alone felt revolutionary. As they walked toward the exit, Cole finally made his move. He stepped forward, arms crossed, voice low and smug. "So now you're coaching." Jason didn't answer, just looked at Riley, then looked at Cole. Cole laughed. "You had your time, man. People like you, old school, sentimental, you don't last in this world anymore. No one wants quiet, they want results." Jason tilted his head, still no words. Cole leaned in closer. "You're not inspiring. You're a museum piece." The gym had gone quiet, not fully, but the kind of quiet that says something's coming. Jason stepped closer, looked at Cole, really looked. Then said calmly, "If your version of strength requires humiliating people, you're not building athletes. You're building fear. Cole smirked again. Fear builds winners. Jason paused. Let the weight of the moment land. Then, fear breaks people. And one day it'll break you. He didn't wait for a reply. He turned, walked out with Riley. The gym didn't erupt, but the silence, it lingered longer than it should have. The next morning it happened. 3 clients approached Jason at the juice bar next door, different ages, different skill levels, but same story. They were tired of Cole, tired of being screamed at, tired of injuries, of shame, of being reminded what they couldn't do instead of what they could. They asked if Jason would train them, not for competition, for life. Jason didn't say yes, not yet. He asked for one thing: show me you're serious. Tomorrow, 6 a.m., public park, no mirrors, no music. 6 showed up. By the end of the week it was 12. Word spread fast, not online, in whispers. The same way rumors move through broken systems, fast but quiet. Jason's off-grid sessions were different. No shouting, no trash talk, no ego, just technique, just sweat, just presence. It was only a matter of time before Cole found out, and when he did, it wasn't pretty. He showed up that following Monday, storming across the grass mid-session, sunglasses on, voice booming. Jason was showing an old wrestling transition to one of the guys. He didn't look up. Cole stepped right in front of them. So this is it. You're stealing clients now. Jason stood slowly. No anger, just gravity. They weren't stolen, they left. Cole barked a laugh. You think this is training? You've got people rolling in the dirt like kids. There's no discipline here. Jason stepped forward. They're learning control, balance, breathing. He paused. No one's crying on the floor, that's the difference. Cole stepped in closer, chest out, arms flared. You trying to make me look weak? Jason didn't blink. I'm not trying. That was the last line spoken. Cole turned and walked away, eyes scanning the group for loyalty. None met his gaze, not one, because they weren't following Jason. They were walking away from him. Have you ever walked away from a toxic leader, not in anger but in clarity? Drop your story in the comments, because silence isn't weakness. It's what healing sounds like. That week, Cole's group numbers dropped by half. The following week, they dropped again. Riley. She started helping Jason run his sessions, not as a trainer, as a witness. A reminder that you don't have to yell to lead, you just have to show people what respect feels like. And Jason. He never said another word to Cole after that park encounter, because he didn't need to. Cole Maddox wasn't the kind of man to let silence win. He'd built his entire persona on volume in voice, in presence, in reputation. Every room he entered, he took up space, not with substance, with force. So when people stopped listening, when clients stopped showing up, when Jason Statham, without a single promotion, stole the attention of half the gym, Cole started cracking. But not outwardly. He smiled more, laughed louder, trained harder, but under the surface he was waiting. Planning, not to rebuild, to retaliate. The first move was subtle. The gym's front desk began turning people away from Jason's sessions at the park. They were gym property, staff said, not authorized, not insured, dangerous even. Word got back to Jason within hours. He didn't react. Didn't post about it, didn't confront management, didn't escalate. He just changed parks, and 20 people followed. The second move was worse. Cole began spreading rumors. He told people Jason's past was fake, that his combat background was staged, that the only thing real about him was his agent. He said Jason was washed up, a movie prop playing coach, too old, too slow, too out of touch. Jason heard all of it. He said nothing. But his numbers doubled that week. Then came the third strike. This one wasn't just noise. This one was personal. Jason had been training with a group of new clients at a private martial arts facility on the edge of the city. A friend had let him rent the space twice a week, clean mats, neutral ground, safe, until one night Jason arrived to find the entrance locked, chains. A sign that read, closed for safety violations. The owner was confused. He'd never filed anything. But an anonymous tip had triggered an inspection, noise complaints, improper permits, even a false accusation of violence. Jason stood outside the gate, arms folded, unmoved. He knew exactly who had done it. Still, he didn't strike back. He made a phone call, booked another location, and started again the next morning, because you don't out-yell ego, you outlive it. But while Jason stayed steady, the pressure was mounting on Cole. Internally, the gym was facing backlash. Several members had filed quiet complaints about his methods, injuries, verbal abuse, threats. But Cole had protection. He brought visibility, numbers, influence, until one message broke it all open. It came from a former client, a teenager, 17. Quiet. Used to train with Cole 3 times a week, always at the back. Always pushed beyond his limit. One day, the kid stopped showing up. No one asked why, but 3 weeks later, his mother wrote a public post. My son left the gym because of Cole Maddox. He came home limping, ashamed and humiliated more times than I can count. He was told that weakness was a disease, that quitting was failure, and that pain was normal. Now he sees a therapist, not a trainer, and we're learning how to undo what was done. The post exploded. Not because it was dramatic, because it was true, and people had been waiting for someone else to say it first. Jason didn't share it, didn't repost, but his phone buzzed nonstop for hours. Riley called that evening. Her voice shook, not from fear, from relief. "It's happening," she said. "People are speaking." Jason didn't celebrate, he just nodded. Truth doesn't always need help, just space. The next morning, Cole walked into his gym like he always had, chest high, head forward, but something was different. People didn't make eye contact. The front desk girl didn't smile. 2 regular clients walked right past him without a word. He headed to the locker room, opened his email, and froze. Internal investigation. Client misconduct allegations. He stood still for a full minute, then slammed the door shut. That afternoon, Jason was holding pads for one of his older clients, a former firefighter rehabbing his knee. The session was smooth, focused, respectful, until a shadow appeared by the fence. Cole, he didn't say anything at first. He waited. Jason didn't acknowledge him. Not until the round ended. Then he looked up, still calm, still composed. Cole stepped through the gate. No invitation. Jason didn't stop him. But his eyes said everything. Not here, not like this. Cole stood 5 feet away, hands at his sides. He wasn't yelling anymore. His voice came lower now, more tense. "You think this is justice?" Jason didn't answer. Cole continued. "You ruined me, all because I called you old in a gym." Jason took a breath, let it fill the space, then replied, steady as ever, "You weren't punished for mocking me. You're being held accountable for what you did to everyone else." Cole laughed once, but it didn't sound right, like a sound from a man who didn't believe in it anymore. "I built that gym." Jason nodded. "But you tore people down inside it." A group had gathered now. 6 trainees, Riley, 2 strangers who had just finished stretching. They weren't interrupting, they were witnessing. And that was the part Cole couldn't handle. He wasn't the center anymore. He was the warning. Jason stepped forward, only once, just enough to be heard clearly. "You had power, you chose fear, you had attention. You chose humiliation, you had people who needed guidance, and you gave them shame." Cole stood frozen. Then for the first time he stepped back, not out of respect, out of exhaustion. He turned, left, no final word. And no one followed him, not one. Jason stood in the silence after he was gone. He looked around, at faces, at people, at posture that no longer bent under weight. Then he picked up the pads again and said, "Next round." Have you ever watched someone in power finally face the weight of what they built? Tell us in the comments. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with noise. It comes with exposure. That night, the gym removed Cole's name from the schedule. The following week, his contract was suspended. And within a month, he was no longer employed. No press release, no apology, just absence. But Jason, he didn't take a victory lap. He didn't post, didn't gloat. He just trained, one client at a time. Because real strength doesn't demand attention. It earns it quietly. The gym moved on, at least it tried to. Cole's name was gone from the staff list, his locker emptied, his social handles quiet. Management never addressed the details, just a vague statement about internal restructuring and trainer conduct policies. But everyone knew. You could feel it in the walls, in the way people stretched longer, in the way laughter sounded more honest, in how no one looked over their shoulder after a missed rep. A weight had been lifted, but not everyone gave credit where it was due. Because Jason Statham wasn't trying to be the hero. He wasn't trying at all. He still trained in the park, still refused sponsorship deals, still turned down interview requests from fitness magazines that had finally caught wind of the story. His sessions were growing. Old clients brought friends. Physios referred patients. Even ex-Cole loyalists showed up, quieter, more humble now. But Jason treated every session the same. No fanfare, no preaching, just presence. Then one afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the treetops, a man approached. He wore a gray polo, corporate posture, familiar face. He was one of the gym's senior managers, someone Jason had seen in meetings but never spoken to. The man extended a hand, polite but tense. Jason shook it. "We want to offer you Cole's old position." Jason said nothing, just waited. "Head coach, full control, your style, we've watched you. The staff admires you. We've had more new signups in 2 weeks than we've had in months." Still, Jason didn't reply. The manager shifted. "You wouldn't just be a trainer, you'd be the future of the gym." Jason looked past him toward the grass. A few trainees were finishing cooldowns, laughing softly, helping each other stretch. Not a single phone out, just focus, community, trust. Then he looked back and said calmly, "No." The manager blinked. "No." Jason nodded once. "That place doesn't need a new face, it needs a new foundation." The man tried to reason. "We'd let you build it your way." But Jason had already turned, not rudely, just finished. That night he sat by himself on the same bench where it all began, where he watched Cole humiliate a kid mid-set while everyone else laughed. He thought of Riley, of the firefighter, of the boy who once collapsed mid-burpee and now led warm-ups without fear. He didn't want a building, he wanted space, where people could sweat without shame, fail without fear, and become more than they thought they could without anyone needing to be less. The next day he found a warehouse, small, quiet, undeveloped. The floor was cracked, the lights were old, the ceiling leaked in 2 corners. Jason signed the lease that afternoon. He didn't call it a gym, he called it the Forge, because nothing walked in finished. And everything came out stronger. They started with mats, then ropes, then pads, no mirrors, no speaker system, just sweat, movement, and people earning themselves back. Jason didn't advertise, but they came anyway. Riley became his co-lead, the boy from the burpee. He helped with strength drills. Even some of the trainers from Cole's old team applied quietly, hoping for a chance to teach differently. Jason gave them trials, not based on reps or knowledge, based on how they spoke when someone failed. And as the Forge grew, word reached back to the gym. People whispered that Jason had built something special, that there were no insults, no tests of masculinity, only trust and real strength. One day the manager returned, this time without a contract, just a request. "Would you speak at our staff retreat about your approach?" Jason paused. "You sure they want to hear it?" The man didn't flinch. "They need to." That weekend, Jason stood at the front of a mirrored studio filled with trainers, execs, and coaches, the very kind who once clapped for Cole's cruelty. He didn't bring slides, didn't wear a mic. Just stood in his same black t-shirt and looked around the room, then said, "I'm not here to tell you how to train. I'm here to ask what your clients remember when they leave." A few trainers looked at each other. Jason continued, "Because the body forgets reps, it forgets weight. But it never forgets how someone made it feel when it was struggling. If your voice becomes the one they hear in their lowest moments, make sure it's not tearing them down." Silence, then a nod, then another, and slowly the room shifted. Have you ever been in a place that made you feel less than, until one person changed everything? Tell us in the comments, because sometimes the strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who show up and refuse to break you. Months passed. The Forge grew into something more than Jason ever expected, not just a space, a movement. People flew in from other cities. They wrote letters, shared stories of trauma they were finally unlearning, posted videos of their quiet progress, not for likes, but for reflection. Jason watched from the side, always just behind the camera, because he wasn't the brand, the people were. And then one day, quiet, almost unnoticeable, someone walked in Jason hadn't seen in months. Cole, hair longer now. Jacket too big, no swagger, no followers, just him. He didn't interrupt, just sat on a bench in the corner, watched. Jason saw him, didn't react. He wasn't surprised, because the truth, even the ones who mocked you, remember. Cole stayed for an hour, didn't train, didn't speak, then left. Jason didn't chase him, didn't need to. He'd already said everything he needed to, without ever raising his voice. Jason never meant to be a symbol. He didn't build the Forge to go viral, didn't coach to be filmed, didn't train people for applause. He showed up every day with the same black shirt, the same silence, and the same belief. That strength didn't need to be loud to be felt, but the world noticed anyway. It started with a small write-up in a local wellness blog. Then a YouTube clip, shaky phone footage of Jason showing a breathing drill to a group of nervous teens. The audio wasn't great. His words were quiet, but the comment section lit up. Why does this feel like the first time someone really taught me something? This man speaks like he's protecting something sacred. I've never met him, but I needed this today. The clip reached 100K views in a weekend, and that's when it happened. The invite, it came from a global fitness conference, one of the biggest in the world. A main stage keynote spot, the kind of thing that required lighting cues, teleprompters, social media blasts, and press interviews. Jason almost deleted the email, but something held him back. He forwarded it to Riley. 2 minutes later, she replied with just 2 words, "Do it." He agreed on one condition: no branding, no sponsors, no stage theatrics, just him, a mic, and a room full of people who might still believe that real change didn't come from humiliation but from something quieter: respect. The day arrived. Jason stood behind the curtain, hands loose at his sides. Riley stood nearby, not nervous, just proud. The stage manager gave the cue. Jason stepped out. No music, no walk-on video, just footsteps on hardwood and 3,000 faces waiting to hear from a man who'd gone viral without trying. He didn't open with a joke, didn't smile wide. He walked to the mic, adjusted it slightly, and started with this: "I was mocked once, not for being weak but for being quiet." The crowd stilled. He continued. "They thought silence meant softness, that discipline without rage wasn't real, that failure needed to be punished. But they were wrong." He paused, let the silence hang, then spoke again. "The strongest people I've ever met were the ones still standing after someone tried to break them. And the best coaches I've ever seen were the ones who didn't raise their voice, because they knew their presence was enough." Faces in the crowd began to shift: trainers, athletes, therapists, parents, all hearing something they didn't know they'd needed. Jason looked out at them and said, "If your idea of strength relies on fear, it's not strength, it's control." He talked about Cole not by name but by method. He talked about what shame does to the body, what fear does to a trainee's breath. How breaking someone's will isn't coaching, it's violence dressed in gym clothes. He told them about the boy who collapsed, about the woman who trained through injury to avoid embarrassment, about the veteran who learned how to breathe again after being mocked into silence. He told them about the forge and how every person who walked in had one thing in common: they weren't trying to be impressive, they were trying to come back home to themselves. A pause, then the final words: "I didn't come here to inspire you. I came here because someone in this room might be using their voice to hurt and doesn't know it yet. And if this is your wake-up call, let it be the last time someone walks out of your gym feeling smaller than when they walked in." No music played when he finished. No lights changed. No one stood at first, because the silence had weight. Then one by one they rose, not to cheer, but to respect the space. Because Jason hadn't delivered a performance, he'd held up a mirror, and everyone had seen something true. Backstage, Jason sat alone for a minute. Wiped his face with a towel, breathed. He wasn't proud, he was centered. The next week, letters came in: emails, texts, handwritten envelopes, from trainers who changed how they coached, from people who walked back into gyms they once feared. From a single mother who wrote, "My son has autism. He never liked gyms. But after watching your video, he asked if we could find one where people don't get yelled at. We start next week." Jason didn't post it. He printed it, folded it, and slid it into the back of the worn notebook he kept in his gym bag, the one he never showed anyone. Then one night the forge got a visitor, Cole, again. Only this time he wasn't alone. He brought the boy, the one who had collapsed that first day, the one Jason had helped up. The boy had grown, taller, stronger, but the eyes were the same, still searching, still unsure. Jason walked over, nodded, no words. Cole didn't speak either. He just gestured toward the door. Let the boy walk forward, then turned and walked away. Jason watched the boy step onto the mat. No announcement, no attention, just movement, deliberate, unsteady, honest. Jason turned to Riley and whispered, "Put him with Marcus. Keep it light." She nodded, and the session began. The forge didn't have trophies, didn't display before and after photos, didn't brag about transformations. But that night it gained something bigger, a full circle, a moment where pain stopped passing forward and started healing. Have you ever watched someone come back from mockery, from shame, from fear, and find their strength again? Tell your story in the comments, because sometimes all it takes is one moment of respect, to rewrite years of pain. Jason Statham had done 1,000 fight scenes in his career. He'd taken hits, thrown punches, dived from rooftops, but none of them had left a mark like this story, because this one wasn't written by a screenwriter. It was written by choice. By the choice to stay calm in the face of arrogance, to stand still while others shouted. To show that real strength doesn't need permission to exist.